Hello, Internet. My name is Chamomile.
And I'm Requiem. So we lost last time, but like I went back and played some myself, and like the Staglord is actually pretty easy if you know the trick to beating him.
Right, Requiem. I wanted to talk to you about that. Uh,
Oh,
you can't keep doing this. You can't keep going back to Pathfinder when it only ever hurts you. You've gotta stop playing this game, okay? Like, we're all here because we love you and we support you.
you're the only one here.
I mean, yes, but I don't know any of your other friends, and they're probably all hags anyway. Uh, so I'm just doing the intervention script with just me.
How else am I supposed to get my tabletop gaming kick in? Like, am I supposed to play 5th edition? Is that what you're telling me?
The dangers don't frighten me.
I mean,
You banned me. You banned me from all your other games.
I you were starting love triangles amongst all not the characters, the players.
What else do you do when you're playing a game?
You played the game?
Yeah,
I don't-
by creating love triangles.
No. By actually engaging with the mechanics and the people, but in literally any other way besides creating love triangles, though.
It only ended in a fist fight the one time.
Someone was in the ER.
Stand down.
Let's just focus on this tabletop game, and we'll discuss your love triangle version after.
So I'm just now realizing that, oh yeah, I probably should have done the zombie fight again off screen, but, we're here now, and we're in recording time, so if we don't do it on screen, we're just not going to have, we're going to have 2 episodes instead of 3 this week, so here we are.
Serves you right.
Chamomile and Requiem play Kingmaker, where our motto is, it's more interesting than staring at a blank screen for 45 minutes.
You actually don't need to engage with the zombies at all.
Not really?
Alright, once we clear out these ones, just go through the main gate.
This should do it.
I tried going
Kind of
through the
happy.
main gate, but
Oh, you did?
not on this playthrough, but last time, yeah.
Remind me what happened?
I tried a couple of skill checks and they failed.
Oh. Well, you can
And one
just
of
go
them,
through the main gate if you pass those skill checks.
yeah, one of them was one that we were good at, but we got unlucky, so zombies it is then. But yeah, definitely, in retrospect, like, oh yeah, I should definitely go and attempt that. We might get lucky this time. That was weird.
What?
Oh, just it. Because the way the turn order went, the zombie got knocked over by the monitor lizard. Its turn was immediately afterwards, so then it just immediately flailed back up with like one of those bouncy clowns.
You disturbed it.
So if we replace Amiri and Lindsay, Amiri, I think another barbarian would be good.
Yeah.
For Lindsay, I've had a lot of. I've got the ranger that you eventually recruit. So it seems like a ranger might be a good choice. Though we're playing on easy baby mode, so we could probably just pick for like aesthetics, like what kind of class we want. Like if we want to do like Emberheart, we could do like a fire kineticist. Or Wildheart, I think was his name.
I forget, but we do have a fire-themed twink portrait in the mod that we got. Which is like the only twink portrait we have left of them, so... Yeah, I've heard Kinesis is really good. So, I do have as part of a goal here, like, I want to keep this as simple as possible because, I'm trying to hold a conversation while I'm doing this, which means I'm barely paying attention to this game, so it had better be goddamn easy. And, the Stag Lord fight in particular didn't end up that way, but then not only did I kind of, like, roll directly into the hardest possible version of it, I also, I didn't even do that fight particularly well. I was really sloppy with keeping my healer protected, stuff like that, which, came back to bite me in a big way when people started going down because I couldn't heal them.
I don't remember if we pre-buffed at all or not.
We did not.
Buffing is a huge difference in everything. Oh, hey. It worked.
Hooray.
We are immediately going to have to fight these people.
I mean, I was about to ask if now that the gate is open, can we murder them? Because I don't feel good about having hostile NPCs at my back. I am, in retrospect, however, I'm glad that we did not have Mug Thwumpy be a giant centipede, even though that would have been more fitting for his character. I just really despise giant centipedes now.
That is fair. That is very fair.
This will hurt.
So Kiernan is theoretically a priest of Gosra, but there's probably a Pathfinder-specific god of, like, drowning people specifically, I'm sure.
There, okay. There's a guy who's fallen down, that's why. Warn the Stag Lord. No, don't do that. Why don't you instead have a tasty, tasty arrow? No need to thank me.
Oh hey, there's a goddess of drowning, romantic tragedy, and suicide.
For serious?
Yep. Called Nadiri. She is neutral. There's also a god of drowning, waves, and water. I think that's one of the elemental lords, who are all evil for some reason. There's a goblin god of drowning, flotsam, and scavenging. And there's a Sakil tormentor of drought, drowning, and stagnation.
I mean, most of these sound like cool concepts, but this is way too many drowning gods.
Pathfinder also has this thing they did where every god is limited to 3 areas of concern and 4 or 5 domains, which ended up really limiting how they created their god. Like, I can understand limiting the number of domains, but limiting the areas of concern was really stupid because it's not like those do anything mechanically. And also, for some reason, you're constantly ending up with gods who's like you'll have a god, oh, there's the god of fire, volcanoes, and death by immolation. I was like, all right, those are so conceptually similar that you might as well have not even listed them.
Right. Like, what does the god of fires but not death by immolation look like? How is a god of fire just uniquely unable to kill people with fire? Like, even if he's a god of, like, fire and the forge, I would still expect that guy to be able to set people on fire.
Or, like, a lot of the gods have the race that worships them as part of their area of concern. It's like, yes, obviously, but that shouldn't be part of their, like, actual, like, what they are the god of. Especially when you've decided that that eats up part of the portfolio you can list. Like, I understand limiting domains. I don't think it was that important, but I can understand why you would think that was something you needed to do. Though if you are going to do that, forcing them to have an alignment domain is especially stupid.
Oh my god.
But it made no sense for portfolio, which is purely descriptive. It does nothing.
Yeah, no, portfolio was a terrible idea. It's exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. What you should be asking yourself is, okay, what is the maximum number of gods we can reasonably support? It's probably 12. And then how can we split up all the portfolios we need to have between them? And then whenever you come up with a new portfolio, you don't come up with a new god, or, God forbid, set of gods to have that portfolio. You assign that portfolio to an existing god. Now, with domains, I can see it's like we want people to be able to chunk things up where, you pick one of these X number of gods, then each god has a manageable list of no more than 5 domains. Because when it comes to remembering lists, the magic number is 7 plus or minus 2. So to be extra careful, you want it to be 5, the lower limit of that. Practically everyone can remember lists of 5 things. So I can see why you would want to have gods have a maximum of 5 domains. And if you have enough domains, you might eventually get to a point where you need some new gods.
This should do it.
I'm not sure if Pathfinder actually has that many domains, though, because 12 gods can theoretically support 60 domains.
In theory, they kept the number of domains limited, but they added subdomains, which...
Oh my god.
You deserved it.
They go down!
So, Taya.
This guy is terrible at jokes.
We can do it!
You offend me.
I mean, you joke about, like, oh, what am I supposed to do if I don't play Pathfinder? Play 5th edition? And, I mean, 5th edition has its drawbacks, for sure. But it does have, like, a manageable number of domains. It is not difficult to assign every domain to a different deity in 5th edition without bloating either the list of gods or the number of domains per god out to an unreasonable number.
I guess, like, with the amount of system mastery I have, 5th edition just seems kind of boring.
A calculated risk.
Yeah, and, like, that is fair. 5th edition runs out of content fairly quick. And for someone who has already been doing the whole D&D game, the whole D&D thing for a while, a lot of their base content is probably going to seem kind of boring by comparison because you've already done that. The numbers have moved around a little bit, but it's the same basic idea.
Like, we've joked about Pathfinder not being able to support character concepts also, but it seems like they do a much better job than 5th edition does.
They very much do. It's definitely true that, like I've said before, that Pathfinder is really good at being something where, you come up with a character and then you go looking for the rules to support it, whereas with 5th edition, you look at the rules and then you come up with a character that can be supported. Now, Pathfinder is not as good at that as they really should be after 10 years, but it is their niche, and they are better at it than 5th edition is.
Like,
5th edition's big problem is that every subclass, every character made with any given subclass feels exactly the same. The subclasses do feel reasonably different as early as level 3, so as long as you start at level 3, which is what I recommend for anyone who is not on literally their very first campaign of D&D ever, then subclasses will feel reasonably distinct. But, yes. That's still only, like, there's what, at this point, maybe 7 or 8 different subclasses per class, 12 classes, so you've got about 100 different characters that you can possibly create that will feel meaningfully different from each other. The Monitor Lizard just going to go and collect the loot for us. Good job, guy.
looks like Prince and Gray leveled up.
But yeah, so there's about 100 different characters you can create, and the problem is that probably at least 30 to 40 of them are characters that have been in every single edition of D&D. So if you've been playing this, this genre of games for a while, you have seen that one a million times before. So
It's like it took some work to get Selwyn, and it took a little home brewing, but like I got my Fey made for the most part, where it doesn't seem like that it just really has that option.
Yeah, You might be able to wring something out of a Fey Warlock, or I think there's a Fey Sorcerer bloodline. But it is very much like, if the subclass happens to have already been built, then you're good. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot you can do to try and add a bit of, Fey flavor to a class that is otherwise just, maybe a Beguiler or whatever.
Arcane accuracy is helpful.
All right, we'll just go with that one.
Do we have mirror image? Is that level 2?
I believe that's level 2.
Okay.
Large Person is not a bad buff spell, though. At least from amongst the options we have.
Time's not waiting.
I mean, it is, though. Cause fear.
Sullivan has Entangle.
I believe she does. Although we're actually on Kiernan right now because Prince in Grey needs a heal. In fact, he needs 2
This is
heals.
the only way. This is the only way he can get Kieran to touch him.
Yeah, we'll save that one for the big fight. And we'll just channel positive energy for her. We have 1 billion healing potions, don't we? Yeah. Right, so where's his health now? There it is. Is this actually working? It is. It's just healing absolutely paltry amounts of health. Don't know if we're getting unlucky with the rolls or... Yeah, no, we are just getting unlucky with the rolls there.
I'll share my path.
So if we head over to the right, there's a guy we should be able to kill.
Yeah, it's gonna be the very far right, and you might have to go through a couple battles first. But there's probably stuff we can talk about in the interim.
Yeah, nah. I have finally gotten around to drawing up a long list of sewer level topics. I don't think it's actually going to last us, but it should last us for, optimistically 2 or 3 weeks.
We won't falter.
Right. Let me go ahead and pull that list up. Do you want to pick out one and talk about it?
I tried to organize them loosely from most to least interesting, but I got a little bit lazy towards the end, so...
All right. Well, let's start with number 1. How did Pathfinder do the hex call domain game, and how could you do it better?
Aha, yes, the directly relevant one. How did the tabletop version of Kingmaker work? Why did it suck, and how can you do it better? The city building aspect of Kingmaker went through a couple different variations in the tabletop game, in the tabletop version. None of them were very good, but, I mean, credit for at least trying, I guess. Honestly, for a paid product, that's not nearly good enough. But, in fairness, domain management is really hard, and I don't think I've ever seen a tabletop game that really nailed it. I mean, shout out to Dark Lord, which is still not available, but any day now. Possibly, by the time this is actually uploaded to YouTube, it'll actually be on the market.
Bring it.
But Dark Lord cheated by having a very specific scale.
This is where I
Which,
step in.
Dark Lord actually sits down and instructs you to have a campaign that runs on a very specific timetable, with the excuse that at some point your Dark Domain's morale just starts giving out and you can't plausibly continue your campaign of conquest anymore. Which is functional, but it's definitely a very limited premise. So. Oh, hey, can I still murder? Oh, no, that's just a move action left. But yeah, so let's actually, before we get into how to do it better, let's loop around to the where did Pathfinder go wrong with this? So, Pathfinder's city building minigame is almost purely economic, which is fine. Like, that can be fine if the main thing that your city building does is you have, some means of constructing buildings, which builds you some kind of economic engine, and then you use that economic engine to buy things on either a kingdom or personal scale. That would be okay. The problem is that the solution is very straightforward and is exactly the same every time you play the game, no matter what. To make this kind of thing interesting, you want it to be affected somehow by random events. Maybe the terrain you're dealing with varies, so that you've got unbuildable terrains like, hills or lakes. Maybe the resources that you have to work with are randomized, which means you might have to try and figure out, like, yeah, okay, we'd like to build another gold mine, but we have no more gold veins, so we're going to have to figure something else out. Stuff like that. But instead what they have is just an empty grid that you can build any building in any square, and there are things like adjacency benefits and so forth. I'm hoping that, because it's been through a couple of versions, so I'm worried that I'm crossing different versions over in my head, and some of them might even just be house rules that I got popular. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting this right. I may be getting a little bit of it wrong, but I am at the very least confident that no version of it really worked. But things like adjacency bonuses were a good idea. It's an additional consideration, an additional complication, but the problem was that because it was a perfectly flat grid, the adjacency bonuses basically just meant that what you wanted was a checkerboard pattern that consisted of, first, every shop you wanted to buy stuff from, and then alternating with mints. Mints made you the most money, so you just built as many of them as possible. Which, the obvious solution to that, by the way, is that a mint should clearly have diminishing returns. Your first mint can go ahead and be real valuable, that's fine, but then your second mint should be
Inflation kicks in.
Yeah, it should be practically worthless.
Amiri, you're killing us.
Another thing you could do is that mint requires a supply from a strategic resource, on the world map. You've got to have a gold mine in order to supply your mint, and each mint requires a different gold mine individually.
You have to have the gold mine, or you have to invent fiat currency, which is like a level 7 spell.
So, yes, and that can, that's another way of just, keeping your mint under control. Which, I mean, if the mint were the only thing nerfed, then I forget what the second most valuable building would be, but you would just go to building 1,000,000 copies of that. Okay, do I still have to go right here? Is this in the direction of the far right? Because I appear to be approaching a corner. There's a bunch of wolves
you might
there.
have to. There's a fence that you have to go past. Like, see, you have to be above that little area right above you. So I think you might have to go past the.
And then our leader charged forward.
So I guess we're gonna have to fight these things anyways.
Oh well. Yeah. When I ran Kingmaker, I tried to do a thing. Ultimately, I think I was too attached to trying to use the town tiles. They looked very pretty, but it meant I was reliant on whatever tiles happened to be in the town pack that was on the market. And I think something that perhaps didn't look as good, but would have been something that I could have built more from the ground up, probably would have been the way to go. It was also kind of the problem with I didn't want to tell people to come back in 3 months after I've developed a complete subsystem and worked all its kinks out. So I kind of had to go with whatever I had at the time. The basic idea, though, of it that I think could potentially have been interesting, that I still kind of stand by, is that depending on how built up your kingdom was, which is largely a function of where you were in the plot, different sorts of people, there was a random table, and you had a different random table based on how built up your city was. So early on, you would get basically 2 kinds of people, farmers and miscreants.
And you want as many miscreants as possible.
Yes, that was definitely the dominant strategy, was you can't ever have too many miscreants. Just shove them in there like sardines. Don't worry about your food supply. It'll be fine.
I can't offer a lot of opinion on the building that you came up with, just because for the first part of the game we had like a ton of people, and there were several who were just like, so like 3 people who were really invested in interacting with that part. I sort of left them, and then by the time the numbers thinned out, I hadn't really learned it, but there was still somebody who left who was really interested in it, and I wasn't super, like, I had signed up for Kingmaker not because like, oh, I really want to build a kingdom, but it's just because like that was the thing the group had decided on, so
Right.
I was not super invested in kingdom building.
Because Pathfinder games have gotten pretty rare, and Kingmaker has always been the most popular one since it released. So, yeah.
A calculated risk. This will hurt.
All right. Kiernan has
So I
wound up
can't
on the
really-
front lines again, which I probably should not have allowed to happen, but there's only 2 wolves left. We should be fine.
So I cannot offer a ton of feedback about how that system ended up working.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it strained a little bit too much at the limits of how much complexity a system can tolerate, before it starts to bog down. But I do think it was in the right direction. I do think that element of, oh, hey, we have to make do with whatever people happen to show up at our town. We have to make decisions about whether or not we want to turn them away. We have to make decisions about what we're going to build with the people who happen to show up. Because, we might want another blacksmith, but if no blacksmiths have showed up, then we can't have one. Why is everyone walking so slowly?
Yeah, it's one of the annoying things.
Like, they seem to be going even... I think there's something over there that causes the game to stutter a little bit. Don't mind us, just passing through.
You're gonna want to, might as well interact with the owlbear cage while we're over there, or we're right there. I would try to calm it.
I like how we're in the middle of a dialogue here, so this bandit guy just doesn't even mind. Just...
It's our new best friend. He can help us fight.
It's my time to shine. I don't tolerate
That's right, Kieran needs to heal himself. I'll get him right on that. But yes, if you are going to do the city building thing, I think you need to do one of 2 things. Either a random population arrives, and that is defines what kind of buildings you can build, or a random resources get generated on the map, which will affect what kind of buildings you can build. And then if you are doing the random population thing, what I would do is I would say that... is that all I've got is a dagger? Okay, well, we're using the dagger.
Your time is over.
At least it didn't provoke any attacks of opportunity. But yeah, it's basically every time you build a building, that should essentially cost you a certain number of the people who have shown up. So valuable buildings require rare people. I do think the food cost thing of, you know, every type of person you have in your town costs a certain amount of food, because then that's fairly easy bookkeeping to do, is that, you know, how much food are we producing, and then how much is consumed, and then how much is this new person going to cost us. You can do the same thing for money, which can then also just be used as regular money, and has the added benefit that you can have a means of getting a type of person that you really need. We did this in the Kingmaker game a couple of times. Is that, oh, we really need a blacksmith. Let's pay someone, you know, a bunch of cash to come be our blacksmith from Brevoy. So, you know, the disadvantage of that versus someone you roll up on the table is that it gives you... it costs significantly more, but the obvious advantage is that, you know, you can do it on command. As long as you have enough money to pay for someone to come over, you can have that person. It's also worth noting that, you know, if you want kingdom building to be supported by your game, you have to build your game from the ground up to support it. And
Yeah.
Pathfinder and 3.x in general, the problem with that is that as you get into higher levels, it is just... it is more and more focused on, like, super heroics and such. The general guideline for... Jesus Christ, pick up the pace, you guys. There we are. The general guideline for 3.x, including Pathfinder, is that if you are 8 levels above an opponent... why am I going into melee? Oh well. Then there is no amount of that enemy who can pose a threat to you anymore. So, for example, standard orc is considered CR 1/2. It's basically level 0. Which means that if you are at least level 8, then it is generally considered that no amount of orcs is much of a threat to you anymore. Obviously, there is some amount where the sheer number of attacks coming in will build up enough natural 20s to eventually kill you, despite your AC being far up beyond their attack roll, and despite the fact that you are going through like a dozen of them every round as you just bombard them with area of effect attacks and the like.
Yeah, like at one point we got attacked in the Kingmaker game. We got attacked by a skeleton army, and we had mostly beaten them, but there were some stragglers left over. We tried to use our army to finish them off, and it was not going well. So Selwyn just had to personally go out and lightning bolt the rest of the army herself. Which you did not make us actually do like combat. You just had me like roll a couple times. But
right.
Like...
Because I wanted your army to be able to take care of these things, but the problem was making that work with the kind of skirmish combat game that Pathfinder has is difficult because, you know, in the skirmish combat game, that is the standard combat rules, right? Where it's, you know, it's 3 to 6 people on one side and a maximum of about 30 on the other, usually about 10. Under those rules, the simple fact is that, you know, a level 9 sorcerer can take on 50, 60, 70 guys. And that's... The size of the army that you can take on means that it is very difficult for a mundane kingdom to be at all important to you. or for a mundane army to require a mundane kingdom to fight. Kingmaker itself is not... What the hell was that? That was like 4 people. Yeah, Kingmaker itself is not well balanced for this because it does go all the way up to like level 17. But if you want to run a Kingmaker style game in standard Pathfinder rules, then probably the best thing to do is to do an E6 or possibly E8 game, which is a special set of house rules. You're going to take the attack of opportunity and get out of here.
Seem to have accidentally drawn in some more people.
Yeah, they keep on coming over here. Oh, it's a bandit illusionist. Okay.
I'm worried you're going to hit the point where they go and get the Stag Lord, and we're going to have to fight the Stag Lord when we're not ready to fight the Stag Lord.
Serves you right.
Like, this may be, like, if they bring out the Stag Lord now, this may go worse than when it went last time.
Now we've at least got a friendly owlbear, like right over there, that we can sick on him.
Yeah, but it takes like 3 rounds for it to come out.
Or really,
and after it gets done telling everyone that it's gay, then it joins the fight.
Why is it? Okay, yeah, we're pulling guys from all over the fort here.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. There's one point. So I'm gonna tell them about one of Sullivan's secret plans, of which there are many.
Yeah, go ahead.
This one never came into effect, and I don't think you even know about this one.
Ah. Yeah,
So
there's one I was thinking of, but
that's a different. Well, I don't know which one you're thinking of, but that was it's a different one. So there were 2 other members of the party. So Selwyn is queen. One of the party members is prime minister, and the other was general. And Selwyn, she likes marriage alliances, but you can't meaningfully make a marriage alliance between like a prime minister and a general. They don't have a title. So what I was gonna do
not
at
a
some point,
hereditary title, yeah.
Yeah. So what I was gonna do is like, well, don't you all want titles? Like, don't you want to have power that's like independent of like me? Like, technically, you're my prime minister and my general. You serve at my whim. Don't you want sort of like an independent inherited title? I would make them like Duke or Grand Duke. At which point they have inherited titles, and I can use them for marriage alliances.
And I mean, in fact, anyone who's played Crusader Kings knows that dynastic politics is not merely the affectation of a story-obsessed naiad, although it is also that. That is like a legitimate thing, and you could reasonably have a whole plot arc about marriage alliance, about like there is a princess that you want to marry in order to get her family into an alliance with you, and she doesn't particularly want to marry any of you. And so then you can have a discussion of like, well, okay, do we want to engage in dynastic politics like this? And if so, how are we going to make it work? How are we going to bribe her into accepting a marriage with one of us? And that does sort of get you into a sort of more Game of Thrones-y feel. You don't have to get super dark with it. Like, I said bribe, not threaten, because I assume that's the kind of direction most groups would rather take this kind of thing.
A calculated risk.
Well, one of the party members, I believe, had kind of fallen in love with a Naga. The Naga had come out and used charm person vision. Sullivan wasn't affected because she's not a person, But the others were affected, and we had the joke that the one guy had completely fallen in love with this Naga because she's a thick Naga. I'm not sure if a Naga can be thick, or like a Naga could potentially be maximum thick depending on how you interpret the tail.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, is the tail a extension of the butt?
just, I mean, you know, when you have such a non-humanoid body type, everything is up in the air. Like, the existing terminology was made for, you know, humans, so...
We need a version of this chart for Naga. Yeah, that was my plan to make them important marriages.
Any last wishes?
If either of them are listening, they should not listen to that previous part that we just talked about, in case there's some sort of miracle and we're able to go back to Kingmaker.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
I'll
I'm gonna have
do
to edit
is...
in a warning.
Yeah, I'll put a timestamp on this part of the show to warn them of what previous part they should have not listened to.
No, you have to warn them before, so I can do my marriage alliance trick.
No, I don't think that'll be necessary. It'll be fine.
You never let me marry off anybody. Someone almost got to marry somebody. Like, their last session was right before the wedding would have happened.
Yeah, there was a marriage alliance with the barbarian prince that I think was gonna be a thing. You had, like, I do forget a bunch of the exact details because it has been a while, but there was some kind of hunt you had to go on with him to, like, you know, prove your might and such, and you had successfully hunted the thing, so now there was going to be a marriage alliance with the barbarians.
This is where I step in.
Tragically, I don't think that potential solution to the barbarian invasion has been recreated in this version. But it's still a ways off, so we'll see when we get there.
Yeah, the two romanceable male characters, neither really do it for me. It's Tristan and the half-orc.
Let's try this way.
I mean, Tristan does seem kind of twinkish, but then I did only meet him for all of 5 minutes, so,
He also kind of seems like a wimp. He's a clerk of Sarenrae. I mean, come on.
fair.
Like, I'm not sure what the equivalent of that is in the real world, but like,
I won't give up.
he's like a Mormon missionary. He's going door to door asking people about, have they heard the good news about Sarenrae?
Serves you right.
The half-orc guy just demonstrates why you don't really need half-orcs at all, because, like, if I told you that was an orc, you would believe me. Like,
Oh,
there's something about
absolutely.
it that seems half-orc.
You don't
It's
need...
like thinking an orc.
You don't need half-elves either, really. Half-elves are much more popular than half-orcs. Now you want to warn the Stag Lord. Well, I've got bad news for you, buddy.
Now, I don't know if Mug Thwumpy and the Monitor Lizard will have this happen, but the animal companion in the game I'm playing independently eventually had a size upgrade. So if the Monitor Lizard has a size upgrade, he could just be the world shakes at his steps.
Oh, yeah. So if that happens, we can talk about who that guy is. He is one of my favorites. But,
I'll share my
I figured that because he is so clearly non-humanoid, there was no chance you would get him in the thing. Are
Okay, I
you?
think
There
this is
you
it.
are.
Yes, yes. So we're just gonna kill this guy. There's a trap of some sort.
So there is.
This is the guy who had like a leather crop top.
Yes. He's drank a potion of invisibility. What a waste. Like, dude, we already see you.
Do we have
Sure,
glitter dust?
you're invisible for now. We do. I'm not going to bother, though. He's going to get one attack on us.
Oh right, because it's regular invisibility.
Yeah, it's not greater invisibility. Oh, look, and he's already... I already... You may as well not have bothered, Guy. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to call him sarcastically Buddy or Guy, and... Just gonna focus fire on Ox.
Yeah, until he wastes his invisibility, he might as well.
away, you rascal.
Cast a potion of bark skin, which provoked like 1 billion attacks of opportunity. Bad call.
Yeah.
You deserved it.
So do we want to, since we're on Kingmaker as the adventure path, do we want to talk about how to do Fae in a RPG, or do we want to wait till we get more interactions with them? Like, do we want to talk about how Pathfinder messed up?
I think we can go ahead and make that a separate subject. Because, I mean, I can go on for how to do a Kingmaker-like a game right for quite a while, and so I figure we should go ahead and get that all in one place. Like, I'm still not going to get all the stuff I have to say about it out.
I didn't realize you had more to say.
Yeah, no, like, I kind of lost the thread there because stuff started happening in the game, but, because there is...
When we,
So, with the basics of it, there is that the whole thing of, your Kingmaker, your city building game should in some way be randomized, so that players have to react to the situation. But then there's the question of, okay, what kind of plot do you build around that, right? And in Kingmaker,
This should do it.
they had a very strange... So, Pathfinder, let's go ahead and talk about Pathfinder's general adventure path structure. It works for some plots and not others. They use the exact same one for every single one. Part of that is because of production problems. They have to, because that's the way their pipeline is set up.
We can do it.
well, also you are on almost always on a railroad that you cannot move
Right.
at all, which is...
So the Pathfinder structure is they have 6 different adventures, each of which will be written by a separate freelancer, which means they can't interlink too tightly, because while you can and should, and Pathfinder sometimes messes this up, you can and should have recurring characters and locations and such. Ultimately, the writer of one of these 6 chapters will have only read a summary and outline of the other 5. All
That
right.
explains a lot.
A calculated risk.
So, yeah, this allows them to produce adventure paths very quickly, but, it has obvious problems. I am also officially bored with this. Where's my glitter dust? There we are.
Hopefully nobody's blind.
Ashlan definitely isn't blind. Fire away, buddy.
All your might.
Oh, come on.
This is where I step in.
He is a little drunk.
There. Princeton Gray may be blind, but at least he isn't wasted. It's funny because attacking is supposed to break invisibility, but it doesn't seem to be. Which, like, is that secretly a potion of greater invisibility that he drank? Because that is considerably more threatening.
Also, it just did miss concealment, despite you having done glitter dust, which he shouldn't have concealment anymore.
I think the monitor religion may be blinded.
Oh.
In which case, yeah, it's the same as being invisible, because, you know, you can't see the guy. Oh, damn it. That was Amiri, not... Oh, well.
This will hurt.
I thought I was skipping to Amiri's turn, ending Eleonora's / Mucklumpies, but...
You offend me.
I would just kill him. I was not able to find the treasure he's talking about.
Eh. I mean, I don't trust him anyway.
We won't falter.
But yeah, so Pathfinder's 6-chapter approach was particularly a mess because of how it interacted with a hex crawl and, you know, an exploration and kingdom building game.
Alright, are we gonna go fight the other lieutenant, or do you want to go? Are we gonna go fight the dude now?
Rangers don't frighten me.
I mean, we have killed how many bandits now?
I would save if you're gonna do the fight the guy.
Let's be maximum cautious and go and kill the other guy first.
We can potentially get him to join our side. Like, there's a diplomacy roll, and he'll join our side.
Alright, cool.
And we are twinked out for diplomacy. We've got so many twinks.
He's on the left somewhere, right?
Yeah, he's right above you.
Ah, there he is. Yeah, company, yeah, no kidding. I am insufficiently lawful, but...
Awesome. Alright, this should
When has
be
anyone
an easy
ever
battle.
regretted joining an alliance with Selwyn?
Yeah.
You
Now-
are going to have to marry Mugthwumpy.
I mean, yes, but
Interesting.
I think I gave the Centaurs a pretty good deal. Like, it went. There were issues towards a part of it, but that was not my fault. It was another thing where I was like, no, we should stay at the city, and we didn't because I always get voted down.
And we never got to the part where they returned from their matter, because the way that I was running it, the Kingmaker happened on a much tighter timetable because it has to, because Pathfinder is very tightly built around the idea that an 8-hour rest is a big deal, so even getting things to extend out to the course of a full year was difficult. Which does mean the kingdom building proceeded at a ludicrous pace, but, you know, I had to make some compromises there. That's another thing you want your kingdom building game to have, you know, a foundational game mechanic you want built into the system, which is that you want a heavy emphasis on downtime. It should, generally speaking, be impossible to level up without, like, spending the winter swinging your sword around in some fancy new way. That kind of thing. Which,
You deserved it.
but yeah, Pathfinder...
Maybe we should have saved and done some buffing before we ran and did this.
Oh, yeah. See, there's the problem. Like, I know I'm supposed to do these things, but I start talking about something, completely forget. Okay, Ashlan, inspire us. I mean, I have at least learned from my previous mistake in that I will be keeping Kieran away from the melee so that he can heal people.
Bring it.
We seem to be doing better.
Amiri has 53 hit points. What is she, level 4?
But
I
you
wonder
were in
if
the middle
she's-
of the thought.
Yeah, but like now I gotta ask, like, is Amiri just an intentionally overpowered character because she's an iconic? Can we reproduce that with regular barbarian levels, or is she special?
I don't know. You'll have to pull up her screen at some point.
And another thought, we're getting to the end of the music loop right now, which is too bad because, you know, it's real good for a second there. And then, yep, no more. We're all done having exciting music. There are now literally crates in the background. Alright, and we are going to stack all of our bonuses onto Amiri. It is grinding against my instincts so hard to have that guy be our ally. But definitely don't want to, have to do this fight a third time because of my foolish bloodlust, so
Any last wishes?
we're going to do this the smart way.
Well, we didn't buff beforehand, so
Okay, we're going to do this the smart-ish way.
we're gonna do this the average way.
Yeah, so the problem with Pathfinder's 6-chapter approach, though, is that it nails you into the map expanding and the plot unfolding sort of at the same pace as each other. Is that, like, this extra chunk of the map gets added, and then also this next stage of the plot happens, which sounds like it can work, but in practice, what you want is to have the plot emerge dynamically based on when the players bump into it. So, for example, rather than having, it's book 4, that means the barbarians are preparing an invasion, and also the section of the map that has the barbarians on it is now available. Rather than that,
Your time is over.
I may have to sneeze here for a bit, but it's one of those things where it can't decide. It's like the cat of sneezes. It can't decide if it wants to sneeze or not, and I think, okay, never mind.
Those are the best / worst.
Ah,
Let's try this way.
I hate them so much. But yes, instead, what you would want to do is you would just want to have the barbarians be on the map. In the third book, The Varnhold Vanishing, that's number 3? That's number 3. There is a big old lich who is a bad guy, a Cyclops lich. The problem is they have to make him a weird half-assed lich because it's way too early levels to be fighting a real lich, but whatever. The basic idea of this ancient Cyclops warlord who has come back as an undead necromancer king, that's a pretty nifty idea. I am okay with it. But again, the problem is instead of just having him on the map from the start, as one of several factions competing with you, he shows up for one book, you knock him down, and then he is never heard from again. So, instead of, a big old map full of adventure and other people who are trying to claim the same lands, but, some of them are bandit warlords, and some of them are these necromancer kings, and conspicuously, none of them have a civilian population.
That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, isn't that lucky that we're the only ones who have any kind of
You're not going to be able to hit him right there. You're going to have to go all the way to the right and walk up the stairs.
I couldn't see any stairs, so I was kind of wondering, like, how do I...
There's stairs away. It's going to take like 3
Oh,
turns
God.
to get to him. It's so much fun. Like, he should jump down once his minions die or something. I guess Selwyn can hit him, though.
It's true, she should probably just be shooting at him.
She just wanted to join the fun.
She saw everyone running and thought it was a race.
This should do it.
Yeah. Anyone who's not especially good in melee was just gonna, yeah. But yeah, like, Kingmaker would be so much better if you had barbarians and Pitax and the Stag Lord and Varnhold and this, I forget his name, but the Cyclops guy. If they were all... Holy shit, was that 40 damage? I mean, it was an owlbear crit, but Jesus.
Yeah, and I don't know why it's able to hit him, because I'm pretty sure the others are not going to be able to hit him.
I assume it's because it's large size.
That's probably it.
So it's considered adjacent to him, even though it's... Yeah. Luckily, Mugthwumpy there moves at the speed of light.
This is where I step in.
Yeah, that's half his health gone in one blow. This guy's like level 9, by the way. It's ridiculous. Luckily, his build is shit, so he's like equivalent to maybe a level 5 character, but... There we are. Cure light wounds. Can't quite reach Cello in this turn, but I'll be there next time. But yeah, the way you want to go for a kingdom building game is that having lots of factions on the map is generally speaking more interesting. And the way that you want to go for a hex exploration game, which does make a very good, combines very well with the kingdom building game, is, you know, you explore hexes to see where you might want to build cities, and then you build cities upon them. But that's also one where you just want everything available from the start. Splitting things out into chapters like this. The chapters, you do want, you know, some kind of pace, but the chapters should assert themselves through the mechanics rather than... Can I... Yeah, I'm just going to glitter dust him. Yeah, through the mechanics rather than unfolding themselves, you know, one at a time. Like... But yeah, having half run Kingmaker once, I would definitely run it very differently if I were to do it again. Just...
A lot more people available for marriage alliances.
After so long, I learned to stand.
Got it good, I think.
Yeah.
Spare me your compassion, your judgment. I must await
In my version of this, there was... And it helped that I had Selwyn in the party. There was someone who had an explicit connection to the Fae.
I'll share my path.
But a Fae Knight popped in and basically said, oh yeah, that was Nerissa's pet human. You done goofed. And tried to kill the party. Which sort of gave a hint that... Which, by the way, that's another thing that, as a general rule with the kind of more open games that I advocate... You do want to have a fairly constrained opening and a fairly constrained ending with then a big open space in the middle. So I do think having Nerissa kind of phase in at the end to serve as your final opponent in Kingmaker is a good idea, but the players, not just the GM, the players need to know she's around before then.
Yeah.
Luckily, this was a problem that was obvious even from the summaries, and was fairly straightforward to fix, because her backstory is all over the place in the GM-facing information, so all I had to do was try and find some reason, like with the Fae Knight showing up immediately for revenge, to have that be brought into the fore.